Welcome back to DIY Prop Shop. This episode is brought to you by Audible. It's a great service where you can listen to thousands of audio programs, and I've actually used it myself to listen to the audiobook Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. I really enjoyed the service, so hey, check it out. So if you saw Odin's last episode, he made the fusion sword from Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Now, to continue on with the Cloud theme, I really wanted to make Cloud shoulder armor, or Pauldron. So let's take a look. Alright, so got a reference image here. Okay, not a lot of detail. Okay, this is a little bit better. So Cloud's Pauldron has seen different iterations over the years depending on which game you're playing, but I think my favorite look actually came up in Dissidia and then Super Smash Bros. It's got the classic look of the bolt sticking straight out of it, but then it also has this extra layer of cladding over the top, and I think that gives it some nice dimension. Now we'll be primarily working with EVA foam for this entire build and going back to some basics, which will be nice. But with the method that we're using here, I think you'll easily be able to adapt it to make whichever version you like best. Now this technique that we're about to use is straight out of the Evil Ted playbook. Now if you haven't checked out his videos already, I strongly recommend you do because they certainly helped me out a lot. So we're going to start by making a template. And I'm going to lay down on this sheet, we'll trace my shoulder, and then we can start sketching shapes of what we want the pauldron to look like. So now that my shoulder outline is traced onto butcher paper, I can start doing iterations of this on some tracing paper. Our first template is cut out, and now we can transfer it onto EVA foam. So we've got our pattern and its mirror traced onto the EVA foam, and we're ready to cut it out. I'm going to use a utility knife to do this, and remember, EVA foam dulls your blades really quickly, so it's really good to have a sharpener on hand or just a lot of extra blades. Now that we've got our two halves cut, the idea is to apply some contact cement to the inside edge where they'll be joining and use our guidelines to stitch up along that edge. But to make it a little easier on ourselves and to help get that shape, I'm going to use a heat gun and heat both of these halves up and pre-bend them so they stitch together very nicely. Okay, we're ready to apply some contact cement to that seam. I've got a tub of it right here, and we're not going to use too much. Try to get most of it off of the brush, and we'll start working our way down this seam. And I'm going to use a piece of scrap foam to really just coat it in there. Make sure you put it into all of the pores of the foam. So we're just working really slowly as we go up the seam, and you can use your finger to make sure that both of these pieces are level as you work your way up. All right, there we go. Those are not coming apart. So now that we've got these two pieces definitively attached together, we can come in and do that third piece of cladding that goes over the top. And to do that, I've got a roll of masking tape that I can lay down across the top. I can sketch directly on that, cut that out, and then use that as a pattern for more EVA foam. So something you might have to watch out for is if your blade tries to make a bunch of straight lines out of the tight corner cuts. It's not really a big deal. You can come back in with sandpaper and lightly smooth that out. Okay, just like we did before, we're going to pre-bend this with some heat and then stitch it up. I don't know if you can see this, but I burnt it right here. So when you do this, don't do that. All right. Here we go, kids. Once this is dry, we can go ahead and join these two with the same process. As part of our finishing process, I'm going to fill in these seams with a little bit of spackle before we plaster dip. Now, while this dries up, let's talk about the bolt features that go on the top. Now, when I was first thinking about how to do this, I actually ordered 4 bolts that were 4 inches long and 7/8 inch in diameter. Now, that plus a nut actually weighs about 15.5 ounces, so almost a pound for this little combination. And I guess I wasn't really thinking about that when I ordered them, but feeling it, I was like, this might not be so good, because if you add 4 pounds of metal to this thing, that might tear your EVA apart, and you really don't want that hassle. But what I'd actually recommend is faking the bolts, using some wooden dowels and EVA foam to cut out those hex nuts. But there's still use for this, as you can use this nut as a little pattern. I didn't realize how far down that was. Now, something invaluable for cutting holes in EVA foam is a spade bit to match the diameter of your dowel. All right, this contact cement is going to be coming out of your ears by the time you're done with this. So somehow it became dark, but I'm going to hit this with some Plastidip now, and that'll give it that nice uniform coating. It'll really help seal the foam, and it'll also make it look a little bit more metallic once we're all done painting. Now, to complete the fake bolt look, I've got some extra solder here which I can wrap around the outside of the dowel in a downward spiral to make those threads. Okay, time to paint. We're going to go with a lighter silver and a darker silver, and then I'll bring it inside for some fine details. All right, time to connect these bolts. Now, I want a really secure connection between the bolt and the pauldron, so instead of just gluing it to the surface, I'm actually going to drill a hole all the way through the EVA and then send a screw up into the dowel. Now that I've marked the 4 places I'm going to drill, I can come in with a perpendicular pilot hole from the top side so that when I screw in from the bottom, I know it's straight. So that is our finished cloud stripe pauldron. It's pretty crazy how we can go from a green puzzle piece to something that looks like battle-worn, shiny silver armor with just a little bit of work. Now, for the weathering on this whole part, I didn't want it to make it look rusty like it had been out in the rain for a while, but I did want it to look like he had smashed it around a little bit. So we paid close attention to the edges and scuffed them up, and we filled in some of these low points with a darker silver. Now, if you've got any ideas of what we should make in a future episode, send an email to DIYPropShop@break.com or leave us a comment below. Until then, I'm Vinny, and I'll see you back here next time. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And thanks again to Audible for sponsoring this episode. Just go to audible.com/propshop to get your free month trial of Audible. And with that, you can download any title for free and it is yours to keep regardless of whether you keep the service or not.